Okay. Hope everybody's having a good Saturday. Just starting my stream here to test out how it films during the daytime. And one of the things I was talking about on the last stream, which is the ability to wash over a white gel pen and kind of glaze it back with watered down gouache. You can kind of see that happening right here, what that does. So some of the blues and the shadows will still come through, but then the white gets knocked back just a little bit, so it kind of ties it together and makes it a little less contrasty. It doesn't mean I have to leave it that way, but what it can do and what it can allow for, excuse me, is what it can do and what it can allow for is the ability to go back and then put the whites back in over top of this, and it's kind of an additive and subtractive process. And so if something ever gets too bright or too contrasty and it's distracting from where you want the viewer to look or the emphasis you want the piece to have, then this is a really great way of reining it in. A lot of times the same thing is true with black ink as what's true with white ink. You go a little too far with it, and it just creates contrast everywhere. And by doing stuff like this, you can kind of knock it back. And the same thing is true for what I'll do over here, right there with the shadows, and then what is going on right there with the highlights. So I'm trying a couple of things right now today with the camera. I've got some blue light coming in through the window, and then I've also got a light off to the side that's more of a warm light, and kind of just seeing what it does to the color and seeing what it does to the resolution. I've also been working on a title card right there that I can use and before a stream starts, so we'll see where it goes. I'm going to try to figure out how to get the music to loop, because that's what I want to do. But let me see here. Scenes, recording, camera, mic, options. I'll have to figure all that out. We'll see. Oh, look at that. It was a little louder than I wanted it to be. But we'll see. I'm just going to have to keep experimenting with it. But I wanted to show you guys the process of me trying to figure this out while I work. So fingers crossed I'll have a better understanding of it soon. remove everything. There we go, that's a little better. Put some of this stuff over here. There we go, that's a little bit easier. Now I gotta move. Now, putting these worms in doesn't mean I'm going to eradicate areas. I'm going to go and get rid of those completely, but I do have this be the value that's underneath them, so when I put them back in over it, there'll be this nice, warm, cool relationship on this character. You can see it. I mean, it's almost impossible to see at certain angles, but the worm is in there. Let's see if I can get it to work. And it's just ever so faint as it blends out right up there. Let's see if we can get you a little bit of a closer look on this. There you go. And something I was forgetting to do with the first stream, because it didn't even occur to me to do, is this, which I can do. I can show you the whole piece. I keep forgetting that I have 2 cameras, and that I can use them for different things. So this, if I can figure out which way I'm supposed to move, that right there is a look at where the piece stands right now. Roll it under the camera. And there we go. Oh, this is neat. Things you don't think of, or things you can't imagine in your lifetime. Let's see. Just kind of ties that in a little bit more with everything else that's going on around it. Yeah, it shows up a little bit better. Let's see. You probably need some stuff. Probably should do something. See. See if that's that did very much. Oh well, that. Interesting. Raise that up a little bit. Oh, I didn't even think about that. That's a little better. I don't know. We'll see. Okay, so back to it. When I'm working, I typically am not this slow, but it's very tough to figure out how I'm going to use the technology and then paint at the same time. It's like doing a demo at school, honestly. You try to get into this place where you're not thinking about the people are watching you, and you're not thinking about your trying to teach somebody to do it, and then the second you try to do that, you just it's hard to stay focused. So that is why we typically work at home without a camera. Don't know how Bob Ross did it. Okay, so I've got a cool here, I've got warm over here. A lot of it, I mean, honestly, there's a huge part of what I do that is not that conscious on representational lighting. That kind of happens towards the tail end if I look at something that looks wildly off. But when I look at it on the screen and try to figure out, what it looks like from a distance, I'll notice things and I'll think, like where I put those highlights in last night on the stream, maybe I could go, we'll just try it out because it can always be adjusted. And I want to make sure you guys can see what the process is like. It's not too precious. I have to know what I'm doing and I have to know how to paint. And that's why I've spent a lot of time learning how to do so and learning how the media works and studying a lot of artists. But at the end of the day, you want to get to that point. You want to earn that point to play. You want to earn that right to kind of mess around. I think a lot of artists put themselves behind the eight ball by excuse me, by not learning how to paint and not learning how to do things. This is off to a great start. By not learning how to do things and understand representational work, because it really makes those times when you throw certain rules out all the more effective when you know how it's supposed to go. And I think when I was starting out, to be honest, I wasn't really into representational artwork. I was just doing master copies of comics and just trying to draw like my favorite artists. And I was fortunate in the fact that I had a natural ability to look at things and want to learn how to draw and want to learn how to study things. But at the same time, I probably would have benefited from a kind of just an explaining and a mentoring of why you work from life and why you study things and how that's supposed to improve your work. Because I thought that the goal of doing representational work and studying was the end. You were just trying to do stuff. If I learned how to draw representationally, if I learned how to, God, I couldn't even imagine learning how to paint, honestly, at that age. I didn't learn how to paint till I got out of college. Honestly, I was introduced to a few things, but I kind of had to teach myself with the things that I had gotten in college how to do it, because we just didn't spend a lot of time on skills, to be honest. A lot of it was very conceptual. And I couldn't even imagine when I went into college that I was going to even understand color or painting, which is why it's kind of funny to me when people point those things out as things that I'm strong at or whatever, which I appreciate. Thank you. But for me, I thought that was the end. You learn how to paint representationally, and then that's it. You don't get to do any of the fun stuff, in my mind anyway, what I defined as fun, the stylistic things, the play, the kind of things that I do now. And it's actually the opposite. It frees you up. It frees you up tremendously, because when you know what things look like, you don't have to be dependent on reference because it's on your hard drive. You memorize these things, you build up, as Anders Ericsson likes to say, when you're trying to gain expertise in things, you have to build up mental models. You have to run through things in your head and say, okay, I go on my hard drive. This is what it looks like when a gorilla's lip curls under. Or this is what it looks like when so-and-so illustrates a gorilla's lip curling under, from this particular sculpture that I've seen. And that's the stuff you're calling upon. But if you don't have any of the life experience or any of the representational understanding in there, it's going to be really difficult for you to cartoon well and for you to explore things well. A lot of the work that I do and stuff I do in my free time are portraits or studies of wildlife. And it's not just me drawing creatures. And I think you have to learn how to, like, for example, I'd be lying if I said, oh, well, I studied life drawing and then boom, I just went here into the style. No, I mean, I was looking at artists too. I was looking at Mobius. I was looking at Alphonse Mucha. I was looking at Todd McFarlane when I was a kid. But only looking at Todd McFarlane or only looking at one other artist is dreadful, because as Todd McFarlane said when I was a kid, I heard him say this on a videotape, is all you can ever be is a mediocre version of them. And the chances that the artists you like when you're young are going to be inform your style is highly unlikely, because the things that we look at that we like, that we're attracted to when we're young, stylistically, those are the things that we enjoy, but those aren't necessarily the things that we're going to make. We may make something that's somewhat similar, right? Like I'm still drawing creatures, but I had to find what I always like to refer to as my parent artists, which are artists you look at who kind of think like you a little bit, and who you typically want to find them, or you start to find them when you're older. And when you're young, you're so kind of blinded by your admiration for the people who are frankly not like you, that it's hard to see the things and the qualities that um, can be brought out of your work. And so for me, I went off to college and I saw Alphonse Mucha's poster work. Somebody had a book, or I think it was, someone had a poster in their room or something like that. And I was like, what is that? And so when I saw his work, I got how life drawing could inform your work and make it so much stronger, and that you didn't have to. Gaining the skills to work representationally did not necessitate abandoning the ability to work in a more playful, cartoony, and abstract style. And that's the thing I really think is important if you're a young artist and you're looking at the stuff I'm doing right now, is go on a YouTube video, look at nature, look at wildlife, and engross yourself in the stuff that's happening there, and draw it, pause it, study it, look at it. Slow things, not edits, not cuts, not something that's been sort of, not ingredients that have been chopped up and prepared for you, but the raw ingredients themselves. And look at artists you've never heard of. Look at artists who are not your age or not 5 or 6 years older. And that's a huge part of what makes this stuff successful when I'm working, is I've got artists surrounding me right now. I have art books everywhere, all over the place. And I have art books and artwork that's been suggested to me by students. Have you checked out this manga? Have you checked out this film? Have you checked out this? And I only have so much time, so it's not like I can always look at all of it. But I look at as much as I can. And then what I would say and redirect, and my students know this really well, is I have a bunch of books available for them to study that are things that are classics, important giants in illustration: J.C. Leyendecker, Norman Rockwell, my mentor Brian Stelfreeze, Alphonse Mucha. Again, I have made sure to have a book on him, and then some of the Disney artists like Mary Blair and Ivan Durrell. And so the more stuff you look at and feast on as books, and if if you can't get to a book, Google Images as well, or get to your library and see if they can get a hold of a book for you, for that matter. But the more of that stuff you look at, the better you're going to be. And I think I was very resistant when I was younger to the concept of being well-rounded, because I was like, I want to be the next Todd McFarlane. That's what I'm going to do. And I think that's a really normal thing. It's a normal motivational thing to sort of say to yourself, pick a hero and say, I'm going to be that hero, that person that I really admire. The problem is it's boring for that hero. It's boring for the people that you admire to see just pale reflections of themselves coming back at them, when you can be so much more by studying life. You can be something as an artist that you bring to them, and that inspires them or interests them, or say, hey, this is what this is what you did, it inspired me, and this is what I came up with. I mean, I can only imagine what some of my heroes would think if I said, yeah, this is what I got from your work. They would go, wow, really? I think you had that yourself. But it's not true, because the inspiration is what fueled me when I was looking at their work. And then you make the jump to the knowledge, the systems, and the stylistics that are going to inform your work. But that inspiration doesn't always look exactly like your final work. So don't put your final work in that prison of looking like your inspiration. Study, look at things, draw it in, draw and paint and study from life, and put it on your hard drive. Because when you're working, you're not going to just be drawing from life in that sense. In fact, seldom, when you're working as an illustrator, you're going to be drawing from your life experiences of drawing those things. You're putting them on your hard drive. Practice does make permanent, as Jake Weidman would say. It does. You don't import information by looking at people's artwork. You import information by doing master studies. And it doesn't mean you sign them and say, hey, this is my artwork. That's the journal. That's the diary. That's the stuff you're putting on your hard drive. That's not the stuff you claim as your own. Photoshop a couple of things together, or do a couple of sketches or drawings. But you say, hey, this is what I'm studying. And don't study a bunch of artists. Study somebody who you can learn from, like Luc de Marchelier is someone I give to my students, but someone you can study from and learn structure, not style. And that was really tough because style is so appealing when you're young. It's so appealing to look at style. And structure is really where it's at. Your style you can't get away from. Your style is like your handwriting. And even if you say, oh, my handwriting is sloppy, well, mine was sloppy too. I had poor hand control when I was a young artist. This is what I'm doing now. It's about the study and letting the things and the moves that are going to come out of you, giving them room to breathe. And so I'm going to be talking about a lot of this kind of stuff while I work, and just testing out the equipment right now. And thanks for checking it out. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll just see where it goes. See where this whole thing goes. This is very, very new for me. So we'll see what we can do.